Okay, if you've been following the Ziyah Harris case, then you know that at the time of her disappearance on January the 9th, 2024, she was just 13 years old. Her grandmother, Annette Harris, reported her missing to Detroit Public Schools on January the 10th, 2024. Ziyah went missing from Detroit, Michigan, and sadly, Ziyah nor her body has been found. Now today I want to get into Jarvis Butts' potential defense. Now, during the closing arguments of the preliminary hearing, his defense team raised an interesting argument. They claimed without a body, he shouldn't be charged. But the prosecutor was prepared. It really took him no time to get up and intelligently argue his side. The judge heard both arguments, and after considering both sides, she made a ruling. And she also touched on her opinion of the defense claiming that without a body, that Jarvis Butts could not be charged. Now, I'm curious to know everyone's thoughts and opinions on this. Do you think this will be a difficult case to prosecute, given all the speculations and theories that have been circulating? The fact that some are saying maybe Ziyah is alive and her body has still not been found, or do you believe the prosecutors have a solid case? Now, I do want to go ahead and play that clip, but also in addition to that, remember Ziyah has an older brother who has spoken out, and if you haven't seen those videos, they're on my page. Now, in response to her brother speaking out, he was faced with some backlash, and he had a friend who came to his defense and posted a message. So I also want to read that message, but let's go ahead and play this clip.
However, there is more than that. Her hoodie found at 7 Mile and Berg, which we just saw a photo of, has Jarvis Butts' DNA on it and Ziyah Harris's DNA on it, and it is covered in blood, indicating that something traumatic happened to her. And all the other evidence shows that something traumatic happened to her at the hands of Jarvis Butts. And then we go back to his motive. Was told by Ziyah that she was pregnant, searched all of the home abortion procedures, and was going to go into the Wayne County Jail until December, which we just passed, of 2024. Judge, I submit to this court that the evidence that you have heard over the last 4 days proves not only that Ziyah Harris is currently deceased, but also that she was murdered by the defendant, who had plenty of motive to do so, had plenty of opportunity to do so, and he did that. And I will note that the defendant in this case, Jarvis Butts, does not get a break because he successfully hid her body. The evidence to a probable cause determination, which the question is she probably dead, and did the defendant probably do that? Both questions are answered with a yes, based on all of the evidence.
Now, you've just heard the prosecutor's part of the closing arguments. Now, some key highlights from that is he said that Jarvis Butts had searched home abortion procedures, which those videos are on my page. If you haven't seen them, please be sure to check them out. He also said that the evidence proves that Ziyah, is currently deceased, and that Jarvis had plenty of motive and opportunity. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think he had plenty of motive and opportunity? Additionally, keep in mind that he said Jarvis Butts does not get a break because he successfully hid Ziyah Harris' body. Let me say that that was powerful, but it was also heartbreaking because, of course we all hope for, a better ending than having to face that reality. I'm not, related to Ziyah at all. I just have been following this case just as some of you all may have been following it, but I do think that that's a reality that you have to face, and like he said, the evidence points to it. Now, another thing that he said in probable cause, the question is is she probably dead, and did the defendant probably do it? Now, according to him, the prosecutor's argument, all of the evidence says yes. So if you've been following the case, what are your thoughts? Do you believe that the prosecutor has a solid case against Jarvis Butts and that they will get a conviction? But also, let's hear what Jarvis Butts' defense argued back.
Mishap 284. It's a 1992 case, and I've got copies.
What was the last one?
Got it. Does court want? Yeah. And I point the court to this case because it's a case where homicide was charged and no body was found. A woman named Joyce Fisher was killed, and I believe it was 8 years after her death, her husband was charged. He was convicted, and ultimately the appellate court reversed the conviction because the evidence was insufficient to submit the case to a jury, and so that was the error. And kind of the facts briefly are that Mr. and Mrs. Fisher were in the process of divorcing. It was a pretty contentious relationship. There had been lots of reports that he had been physically abusive to her, and she had even testified that he had threatened to kill her in mid-January of 1978, approximately 3 months before she disappeared. In April of 1978, apparently they were out together, they had lunch, and he was the last person to see her. After that, she disappeared. Now, there was no substantial testimony in that trial regarding her reliability, her long or short-term plans, that she had, she had children, that she was devoted to them, and that she wouldn't have, essentially, that she wouldn't have had any reason to run away or leave. And so that gave rise to an inference that she was deceased. The prosecutor in that case offered no evidence of an act that resulted in Joyce Fisher's death. And the court previously has held that the victim's body, while it's not necessary to establish corpus delicti, there has to be something more. There has to be, in this case, either an admission or confession, physical evidence, or some kind of witness testimony. In that case, there was no physical evidence, such as bloodstains or a weapon, linking the defendant to Joyce's death. He did not admit that he killed her, although the prosecutor offered equivocal statements there, that he seemed to say, well, things didn't happen quite that way, and where it made it sound like maybe he did have something or some knowledge. The prosecutor there presented lots of evidence of defendant's motive and opportunity to kill her, but noted that those are not elements of the crime. And inferences, the court says, may not be based on evidence that is uncertain or speculative or merely raises a conjecture or a possibility. And they said in that case, the evidence did not rise above the level of conjecture. And that's what we have here. We have conjecture. We have a lot of pieces of supposed evidence, but we have no connection. They don't connect to each other. They're puzzle pieces, and when you put them together, there's no picture. There is no big picture because there is no act that can be testified to that Mr. Butts did, and there's nothing to support that act. There's no evidence that he had a gun and used it. There's no evidence that he had a knife and used it. In fact, the evidence that the prosecutor put forward disputes those theories. The idea that Mr. Butts was in some cover-up, the issue of his phone, I think was pretty well cleared up by Ms. Davis when she testified to the idea that for as long as she's known him, he's never wanted her to look at his phone. And mostly because he's been dealing with who knows how many other women.
So you just heard Jarvis Butts' defense team argue that the Charles Fisher case is relevant in this case. Now keep in mind that she is arguing that in 1994, the Michigan Court of Appeals overturned his conviction for the 1984 murder of his wife, Mary Fisher. Now, in that case, one of the key elements that she brought up was that there was no DNA that linked him back. Keep in mind that you heard the prosecutor's argument prior to hearing hers, and the prosecutors argued that Ziyah Harris hoodie was found at 7 Mile and Bird, and it had Jarvis Butts and Ziyah Harris DNA on it, and it had blood on there. So that is a difference. But now let's hear from the prosecutor, his response to this argument.
Talking about People v. Fisher that Ms. Quick just referenced. And it is important to note that this case is distinguishable for the following reasons. One, we're talking about a different standard. This was a trial issue, a directed verdict standard, where the court is saying at trial beyond a reasonable doubt. First of all and foremost, it's distinguishable for that reason. Secondly, though, the court in Fisher said in this case there was no physical evidence such as bloodstains or a weapon linking defendant to Joyce's death. In this case, we have bloodstains. We have bloodstains on the hoodie that was found at 7 Mile and Bird, where the defendant spent 2 hours on the night of the 10th going into the 11th. That places them together in the same spot and is very strong evidence that Ziyah Harris is in fact dead. Secondly, though, Judge, having dealt with People v. Fisher, we talk...
Okay, so the prosecutor, like I said, he was ready. He came back prepared, and he said one of the key things is that in the Fisher case, there was no evidence, right, that linked Fisher to the crime. However, in Ziyah's case, keep in mind that the hoodie that was found has Jarvis Butts' DNA and Ziyah. Now, if you've been following my page, then you know that there are 2 other potential DNAs that were also on there. That is on my page. Do you guys think at this point that the defense raised a good argument to establish reasonable doubt if this goes to trial? Are you guys with the prosecutor? 2 different cases, even without a body, that the evidence is solid. Let me know your guys' thoughts. But I do want to play what the judge said, because I think that that is important to hear what the judge said.
This is a case regarding a trial, and the one thing I had highlighted in case is the quote: "In this case, there was no physical evidence such as bloodstains or a weapon leaking defendant to Joyce's death." In this case, we don't have the same facts or circumstances. I do agree this is a circumstantial case, and circumstantial evidence is sufficient for a bind over and even conviction.
Okay, so you just heard from the prosecutor, you heard from the defense team, and now you also heard from the judge. The judge, she shut that down. She shut down the argument that no body, no case. And what she essentially says is that in the case that they have now, there is DNA evidence that links Jarvis Butts to Ziyah Harris hoodie, and that hoodie was the hoodie that she had on. Ziyah Harris had that hoodie on in the last picture that they have of Ziyah that she took on her school tablet. So that's the picture that you see on your screen, and that's the picture that has been circulating widely of Ziyah. And then additionally, you did hear the judge say that that is why this is fit for trial, is because the evidence needs to be presented to a jury. Now, one of the things that I appreciated in the preliminary hearing is that I do think that this gives the prosecutors an opportunity to tighten their case. I would like to see if they have performed DNA samples on those other 2 unknown matches that were found on Ziyah Harris hoodies. If are evidence. If you have not seen that video, there is a video on my page that talks about that on the evidence collected, there were 2 unknown DNA that was found, right? So I would like to see them perform testing, do whatever they need to do so that they can see if there's potential matches. If Jarvis Butts did not act alone, anyone who was acting with him involved, they need to be held accountable as well. So I would love to see the prosecution team strengthen their case with, and I'm pretty sure there is going to be more to come, because this is just the preliminary, hearing at this point. Now, what are you guys' thoughts? Do you think that this is a strong case? I know I asked that, but what are your thoughts? Do you think that that his defense team will try to bring this argument up again, or do you think with the judge's ruling and how she shut that down that they need to go find some other defense, right? Because that one is just not going to stick. Now, I did say that I wanted to get into a message that was posted by Ziyah Harris' older brother's friend. Okay, so Ziyah Harris has a brother. Her brother has been receiving backlash for videos that he posted on social media. If you have not seen those videos, please go out to my page and look at those videos because I posted them there. In response to the backlash, the friend took to social media and he posted a message. So I do want to get into that, and then immediately after that, I will play a video showing the family's reaction from the preliminary hearing. So here is the message that was posted by Ziyah Harris' big brother friend, right? And this was in response to the backlash that Ziyah Harris' brother was receiving because of the video that he posted. And he said, one of my little bros is Ziyah's big brother, the one they keep calling the runaway. He got some that'll get the grandma and everybody else cooked. I'm trying to get him to tell his side. So it'll be interesting. The brother did say that he was going to come out with his own side of the story, and I think he said he was going to do something on YouTube or something, but that is in the previous video that was uploaded on my page if you want to check that out. Now, I do appreciate everyone's support. I appreciate the engagement, the comments. I'm really interested in you guys' thoughts on this. Like I said before, I will end this video with playing the reaction from Ziyah Harris' family, who was in the preliminary hearing after the judge ruling. And as always, please let me know your thoughts below.
I'm sorry, Judge. Just do it, Jarvis.
Where is she at, Jarvis?
Just